Welcome back, everyone. It's Boomer here, and welcome to Boomer's Playground. So today I want to go over the three main ways people get into the engineering or development or programming jobs. So, like I said in the first video, um, the terminology, I don't care which one you're going for. And another thing about the terminology is it's just that it's terminology. Um, Now, those terms have some stigma behind them, and people have been using them long enough that there's kind of a like, oh, this means that. But there's really not a governing body that says like, hey, full stack has to mean this, or software engineering has to mean this. It's really just how we interpret it. So when people are talking about those terms, kind of keep that in mind. I do think there are some parts of the country, or sorry, some parts of the world, other countries where if you have engineer in your title, there are some college requirements. The US is not one of those, and most of my information is going to be about the US. So if you're from a country where that is a requirement, leave it in the comment section below, but make sure you list the country that you're from just so we know. I would actually love to get more about that data. All I really know about is, America, Costa Rica, Italy, and Berlin. Those are like the three areas where I know people who are developers. So with that out of the way, the three main ways that people find themselves getting into programming are going to be, and per usual, I like to take notes, so if I look down, that's why. Um, the first one is college. College for decades, heck, probably, well, maybe centuries, maybe a century. I didn't do any research for this, so you have to excuse me. Um, College was the right thing to do, right? It was the only way to get a um, a prestigious job, for lack of a better word. Uh, that's not the case anymore, right? There are a lot of good trade jobs. There are a lot of good non prestige jobs or jobs that don't require college educations. But I'm strictly going to be speaking about programming or software engineering or full stack or whatever. So I think the biggest benefit to college is there's a path, right? Whether it's the right path or not, that I don't know and I can't speak to. Um, and I really don't think anybody can, but they give you a path. And if you're on like Learn to Program or Learn JavaScript on Reddit or any Discord group, like what's the first thing most people do? You join the group and they're like, hey, make sure to introduce yourself. What's the first thing that happens? Hey, it's Boomer. I'm from, Southern California. I'm a salesman. I want to get into programming. How do I do it? The path is a big thing. People don't know how to get to the end result. And so, college makes that look good. Also, I mean, depending on your parental situation, depending on how old you are, college has been ingrained in a lot of us. Like, you want a good job, you go to college. And over the past, two, maybe three, presidential elections, like this has come under a lot of scrutiny as well. And we're seeing that college may not be the only way to get a good job. And in fact, it may be a quick way to get into a lot of debt and not get a good job coming out the other end. So um, now, that is not saying that college is doing this on purpose. They might be, but a lot of it does rely on the student as well. So like this isn't just a, oh hey, college sucks. Ugh. No, I mean the student has a lot to do with whether they're employable on the other side of a college education. So none of this is, oh, definitely don't do this or definitely do that. Like you still have to figure out what works best for you, right? So um, big first thing college does gives you a path. Like, hey, what do you want to come to MIT for? I want to become a software engineer. Awesome. Here's the curriculum you need to take to become a software engineer. And you're done. And you obviously get to sprinkle in a couple classes here, a couple classes there. But they're like, hey man, here's the crap you need to take, like figure it out. So again, in the US, college is expensive. You can definitely subsidize the price of college with grants, with scholarships. Um, but most of us won't get those. And the ones that do, you get, a grand here, 500 there. Like you're really not getting like big chunks of money for this. And your average college education is 40 to 70, 40 to $80,000 depending on where you go and how long it takes you. So again, in America, it is expensive. If you are getting a free education in whatever country you're from, or let's say you happen to be, an immigrant to America where there's some, again, some grants or scholarships that are allowing you to take courses at a really discounted rate or possibly free, that changes things a little bit. Um, with that, there is no guarantee. And there's really no guarantee in any of these, which is kind of a weird thing to think about, right? Like, I'm going to give you $80,000 and not guarantee you anything. Like, that is crazy to me. Like, if I, like, at the end of this video, let's say I have a course, which I don't, but let's say I did. And I'm like, hey, man, 50 grand, I would get you a dev job. And you're like, awesome. Is that guaranteed? I'd be like, no, you wouldn't take that course. Now, obviously, I'm a lot different than a college, but it's just something to think about, right? There's no guarantees to that. So, one, if you're paying 80 grand, that's a tough pill to swallow. But also, let's say you do have a free education for some reason. There's still no guarantee. So there's still the time cost, right? It still takes 4 years, 5 years, 6 years to get that degree, depending on, how well you do in the courses you take. So again, this is not to say do it or don't. These are just the things that I've experienced. And I know I have friends who have college debt and I have friends who don't have college debt. So like I can see it kind of from both sides, right? So that's a big thing, no guarantees. Now, if you're in a more prestigious school, that changes a little bit because the networking for those colleges tends to be a lot better than, say, your local community college. Um, so kind of you have to weigh like kind of all that stuff out, right? So if I can save a lot of money taking community college courses, which if you need that degree, if for your parents or you just feel you need that thing, but you don't necessarily want to, be 80 grand, 70 grand in debt, I think a community college is a great first start. They have a lot of programming classes. They tend to be a lot less expensive, especially if you live in the county. A lot of times you'll get like an in-county, discount or a special rate because you're kind of helping stimulate that community. So I think that's a good way to get a lot of basic stuff done, and then you can kind of get into the meat of stuff in the big college in your city or in your area. So I think community college is a good way to help alleviate the total cost if you feel you need a degree or if you just want a degree. Um, you leave with a degree, that elusive piece of paper, that can help you get your foot in the door for an interview. It's not the end all be all though. I I think, I don't know for sure, but from like what I've seen on the Discords and the couple groups that I run, um, a lot of people will do college because all they see are self-taught people or bootcamp people saying like, oh, I can't get an interview because everything requires a degree. Well, just because you get the degree doesn't guarantee you're going to get that interview. Um, we see a lot of college grads coming out that still can't code very well because the college degree is more about the theory, more about the process. Um, and so like that, you know, they got that degree and we're like, okay, cool, where's their project? Oh, they don't have any projects, and we'll just pass on to the next guy. So the degree doesn't guarantee anything. So kind of keep that in mind as well. But there are 1,000,000% situations where it will help you get your foot in the door. Alumni networking, like I said, if you're going to kind of a more prestigious school, or even if that school isn't like nationally prestigious, but let's say it's like locally prestigious. I can't think of a big company that works here outside of mine. But let's say Facebook came to the Phoenix Valley, and this is a bad example because ASU is pretty big. That's like the big one in the kind of Phoenix area. But let's say ASU, Arizona State University. Let's say it was kind of a no-name school. It's not as big as it really is, but let's pretend it's not. Let's say Facebook has hired 20 people from ASU to be developers, while ASU isn't like nationally prestigious, and I know it is, but we're pretending it isn't for this example. Um, it is locally, right? You have an ASU degree. Facebook's like, well, we've hired 25 people and they've done great. there's a little bit of local prestige. So that's another thing to kind of think of if you're going to go that college route. Um, with all that, the degree required thing is an interesting topic in and of itself, and I could probably do a whole other video. But kind of the degree required thing is a whole other topic. Like I could probably do a whole other video on that. But what will happen? And don't get me wrong, there are some job titles and there are some things that a degree they may actually require that, but the majority do not. They say it because what happens is, a team will create the requirements for a job. They will give it to HR, and then HR kind of scans that and says, all right, cool. And then a lot of times what will happen is they will copy and paste a job description for the same job title that we gave them, and then they'll just copy and paste that job title, which all that person did was the exact same thing. So all we're doing is we're like doing this big circle of nobody really knowing what's required, and they're just copy and pasting from other non-technical people. So don't let the degree required necessarily bar you from even applying. A lot of times it's just kind of there. Any entry level junior apprentice developer job is going to get thousands of thousands of applications, because everybody takes a code. You go to Code Academy, they take the JavaScript course, they're like, sweet, I'm a developer, and they start applying for stuff. And so I think that kind of that degree required helps with kind of that barrier for entry, so that they don't have to funnel through thousands of job applications that are just not ready to be developers. And the lack of degree is not why they're not ready to be developers. It's just the lack of knowledge. So I think take that into consideration. The last thing about the college path, if you want college courses but you can't afford it, this isn't going to get you an actual degree, but edX.org has free courses from all the big colleges. You can go, there's a comp sci class from MIT, there's a comp sci class from University of Georgia, from MIT, I already said that, I think, from Harvard, from Stanford. And they even have paths where you can pay and you can get an actual like verified Harvard thing that you finished this curriculum. And it's, you pay for it, and it's, you have assignments every week and you've got to get them in that week, and they're actually looked at by TAs. So, and we'll go over this in the boot camps and the self-taught part. Certifications traditionally tend to be worthless in the job market as far as programming is concerned, because there's no overarching body, right? Like Udemy, all you have to do is watch all the videos, and you don't even have to watch the videos. You just have to click continue so that it thinks you watched all the videos, and you get the certificate. Pointless. These paths through edX.org, whether it's MIT, Georgia, there's, I think, Tokyo's on there. They're all over the world. And this is the actual courses that Harvard students or MIT students take. Like, it's the actual course. Those ones, they hold a little more value because, again, you have to do it in this time frame. It's self-paced-ish. You can kind of do the homework whenever, but the homework has to be turned in by a certain day, because the TAs are actually looking at it and grading it and passing or failing. So I like to use that to kind of get the more comp sci, kind of the more like low level stuff, because I didn't go to college, and there's a lot of really good content taught in college courses. You just kind of have to use them all. So so that's the big one on college. Again, this is mainly from what I've experienced with friends, colleagues who are college graduates, people who have degrees that aren't in comp sci and are now developers, and people who have degrees in comp sci and are now developers, along with people who haven't taken college courses and are developers. So if you have other inputs or other points of view that I missed, leave them in the comment section below. But the next one is boot camps. Boot camps have gotten a lot of popularity over the past 4 years, 4 or 5 years. The economy has kind of been like kind of up and down, up and down. Nobody wants to go into a job anymore. Everybody wants to work from home. They want to travel the world. So boot camps have really filled a void as far as like, hey, I lost my job. My manufacturing facility shut down, and I need a job now. Boot camps came in. They said, hey, 3 months, we'll get you there. Now, I don't know about you, but if I just lost the job that I thought I was going to retire from, that's a that's a pretty sweet deal. Um, so with a boot camp, a lot like college, they give you a path. There's a curriculum. You come in, you do their curriculum. They hopefully have vetted this and they have seen that this is a path that works. They are expensive. Um, they are not as expensive as a big university. 10, 15 grand is a pretty common price for a boot camp, for a good one at least. There are a couple, Lambda School, um, Springboard, I think is one Colt Steel does. There are a couple now that are starting to do this whole you don't pay us until you get a job in the development field. That's kind of cool. That goes against the other thing where I was like, there's no guarantees. I personally haven't looked into all of them, but I know a lot of times when companies do something like that, there are a lot of little loopholes. So I don't know if they're truly guaranteed, but they seem to be trying to go in the right direction. So if you're thinking about a boot camp, do your due diligence, look into it, talk to people who both have graduated and gotten jobs, and also talk to people who have graduated and not gotten jobs. If an admissions person is unwilling to give you contact information or unwilling to have somebody from their classes reach out to you, huge red flag, I'd probably stay away from that one. But the reason you want both sides is the person who graduated and got a job, obviously that curriculum worked for them. So like talk to them and you'll see like, oh, me and this guy are like so similar. That curriculum is going to be awesome. But also you want to talk to somebody who's graduated but not gotten a job, because guess what? What if you're like that person and you're like, oh wow, well this curriculum clearly doesn't work for this type of person, which is me. I'm not going to spend my 15 grand. So it's really important that you talk to a couple people. They're quick in comparison. College, 4 to 6 years, again, depending on, if you pass all your classes, if you take a full load, all kinds of stuff like that. These are 3 to 6 months. I think a couple are 6 to 9, depending. A couple are, some of them now are starting to only advance you if you've progressed enough. So boot camp's starting to kind of morph into real schooling, but just at a shorter time frame. I personally think that's a good idea. I like the fact that, I mean, just 3 months, 3 to 6 months is just too short for most people to pick up programming. Again, if you watch my first video, there will be somebody who posts in the comments that says, no, 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 man, I have this buddy who took, 3 months and now he's making $200,000 at Google. I'm not saying people can't do it. I'm saying in the grand scheme, it's just not enough time for most people. I would love to see a 1 year, a 9 to 12 month boot camp, and you only pass on if you learn the skill set in of itself. I know it's not as quick as three months, which some people just need to like get that job right away. That's just not how it works. Just because you need that job in 3 months doesn't mean you're going to learn enough in that 3 months. I really think like a 9 month, 12 month course would be amazing, and I think that would probably teach or train people better than both a 4 year, because they're going to get into the job after a year and they're going to have 3 years to learn. They're probably going to know more in that 3 years than they would have going to school for 3 years. In the other side, 3 months is not enough time. It's just not. Unless you have prior experience, it's not enough time. So now, instead of coming in and me having to kind of retrain you to even do stuff at my job, you're a year in, you got a lot more consistency. You understand the core language a little better. I think that would be awesome. Somebody should do that. Somebody do a year 9 to 12 month boot camp. The big thing with boot camps is you kind of get what you put in. I've seen people who have gone through boot camps and who have learned nothing, and I've seen people who have gone through boot camps and looks like they got a freaking college degree with the knowledge that they learned. You are in the driver's seat for a boot camp. So if you have trouble holding yourself accountable, kind of pushing forward, If you always need somebody there to be like, hey, do this, hey, do that, boot camp might not be for you. You get what you put in. Um, Boot camps, it's turning around a little bit, and this is kind of like the college thing where, let's say you're in a city where the big college in that city just isn't really that prestigious, but it is locally. It's kind of the same thing. A lot of companies don't consider boot camps much better than self-taught, with the exception if they've hired a bunch of people from that boot camp, they're going to have a different viewpoint. But in the grand scheme, again, yes, I know like Hack Reactor. That is a well-known, that's a well-known boot camp. And if you get through that boot camp, most companies know you're good because they are super selective in who they let come into the boot camp. So a lot of times, if you were to apply for Hack Reactor and you have no prior knowledge, you probably won't get into that boot camp. And so kind of by doing that, they have made it where companies, kind of respect that a little more, whereas some of these other ones who just take anybody, um, companies just don't see it as valuable. So again, do your research, talk to people, talk to companies even, and see like, hey, what do you think about this company as a boot camp or somebody who comes out of here, with this education. So yeah, so that's a big one there. I would again, um, LinkedIn. I hate LinkedIn. I despise LinkedIn with every bit of my soul, and I think it's because I've been in my job long enough now where all I get are just people who are, like they don't even look at your profile. They're like, hey, you look like a great senior Java developer. I'm like, I don't know Java. I could not be a senior in a Java role. That's ridiculous. Sorry, side tangent. But use that to your benefit. Like, get a couple of people who have graduated from that boot camp that you're interested in. Go find them, reach out to them. When you reach out to somebody on LinkedIn, get to the effing point. Don't say hi. Don't say, hey, how you doing? Get to the effing point. I'm busy. If you truly want my blessing or you want to know my feelings, that's because I'm doing the job and that means I'm busy. Get to it. You know, Now I obviously didn't take boot camp, but let's say I did. And you find me and you're like, oh, Boomer's boot camp grad. Oh, wow. Oh, he's working for ADP. Don't message me saying, hey, how's it going? Message me like, hey, I'm interested in boot camp XYZ. I noticed that you graduated from there and you're working for ADP. Get to the point. Ask the questions you're concerned about. If you live in the same area, I know it's tough if you're looking for a job, you probably don't have a lot of money, but you really want me to like be like, oh, cool, like this guy gets it. He gets my time is worth the value. Offer to take me out for coffee. Offer to take me out for a drink, um, and that shows that you're not just leeching or trying to mooch off of me. So, but do that, and then you can kind of get a sense of what companies really think of that specific boot camp. There's just so many boot camps that companies just in mass tend to be like, they're not really worth it. So, but there are a lot of boot camps that are good. So, that's boot camps. The last one, self-taught. This is me. That's what I did. A lot of people have done it. It's not easy. There is no there is no given path. You can find roadmaps. Um, I like the roadmaps as a guideline. People take them as gospel. They're like, oh my God, there's 260 things on there. Like, do I have to learn them all? No, they're a guideline. You need to take them and realize, okay, cool. So I need this kind of core competency. You don't need to know every single little thing, but the roadmaps can help a little bit, but they usually trip people up more than they help them. No direct path. It can be really inexpensive. So this is something that I've kind of turned on. I'm cheap. I just always have been. I haven't always had a lot of money, struggled every now and then, and I have been cheap. So I was just like, no, don't pay for crap. Free, $10 Udemy course. So like I said, I'm cheap. I was always like, cheap, free, $10 coding course on Udemy. I'm coming around a little bit from this. If you don't have the money, you don't have the money. That's it. End of story. Um, if you have the money, people seem to have a hard time wrapping their head around this. And I don't know if it's because of how cheap I am that I have a very, very ridiculously clear depiction of the value I get from something. But like for instance, Kent C. Dodds. I think he was on the core React team. Um, the dude's a G. The dude is a ridiculously genius React instructor. He has a course. The course is about $130 for the base model, I think. It's not monthly, it's just one lump sum, and then you get all of his stuff. And people will argue with me tooth and nail that they're like, well, there's a $10 course on Udemy, and they're not wrong. The level of quality and the level of instruction you get from Kent C. Dodds' course is a better value than a $10 course from Udemy. Now, if you don't have $130, that's irrelevant. If you have $130, I think finding a really good or really quality course can save you a lot of time in the self-taught route. Now, again, hate, throw shade down in the comments below. That's fine. I stand by this. The quality of the content can be worth it over the time. And this is something new for me. This is definitely a new side. And it does help that I now make good money, that I can afford stuff like that. And maybe that's what's helped me kind of reassess my value to those things. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go through those courses. If you don't have $130, or let's say $130 puts you in a really bad spot, yeah, stick to the $10 courses on Udemy. They are good enough. I'm just saying, and again, and this is, and I guess I should have said this to begin. This is not sponsored by him. This is not to push people towards his content. But if you're like, hey, I need to get job ready in 6 months with React, I think spending that $120 extra on a quality course with somebody like Kent C. Dodds is probably the best investment you can make to shorten that time frame for you learning. So, and again, and that goes with everybody. There is a pro in most frameworks or most languages that they do charge a little extra, but it's usually worth it. So do your own research. Take this for what it's worth. If 130 puts you in a rough spot where you might not eat the end of the week, don't do it. This is not a necessity, but if you got the $130 and you're trying to shorten your time, I do think finding like good quality courses like that, and like for instance, Kent C. Dodds, he's in his Discord all the time. He does weekly or bi-weekly, calls with people. So you're not just paying for just the course, kind of like on Udemy, you pay $10 and yeah, sure, the instructor might be there answering questions, but he's not like live one-to-one. If you needed like somebody to break down the process like in person, they're not there. And while Kent C. Dodds may not do, one-to-one, he definitely has the content to help you, and he does have like the office hours type thing. So that's definitely one thing I'd like to add to that, is that like there does come a point when the value is more than just the immediate money you spent on the thing. So, and then yeah, I mean the biggest thing with self-taught, and I'm actually going to kind of give a path in another video on kind of like what I've seen work, what I've seen the onboarding process of my job, see it work there, and the people I mentor in the local communities. Yeah, self-taught projects. And I'll be completely honest, I really should have put this in all three of these. It's all about projects. I can sit and I could do a 40-hour Flutter course. I'm trying to get into Flutter, so that's why I'm saying that. I could pay $10 on Udemy for a 40-hour Flutter course, and I could go through that 40-hour Flutter course, and I could just copy the code and type the code as the instructor does. And when I'm done, I will still not be a Flutter developer. The biggest thing with all of these is using the knowledge. You need to build things. And now people are like, oh, what should I build? You kind of have to figure that out yourself, because if you're not interested in it, you're not going to finish it. I can't just give you things to do. I mean, I can, but you're just going to be like, I don't really like care for that. And you're not going to want to do it. So projects are where you struggle. Projects are where you run into errors that you don't get in a course. Like I said in my last video, you paid for that course. They're going to clean it up so you're not watching them troubleshoot for an hour. Projects are where you really start to learn the language and when you start to Google and learn how to problem solve and you find like the intricacies of JavaScript where you're just like, Colt Steele talks about this keyword in his course, but you don't really know it until you run into that problem when you're building your own side project and you're like, oh shit, why is that the window? Why is that not the DOM element? And then you have to Google it and it's going to take you an hour. It's going to take you an hour and a half to find that out. But guess what? You're going to know it next time because you found that solution. So projects are really, really important. Those are kind of the three paths. The big thing, not even the big thing. I always say that. You guys are going to hear that so much. There's some supplemental things that I want to share. These are not courses. These are websites where people go to get help. And so I have suggestions for these in the path section, which I'm going to do the next video, but these can help you get help and they can also help you make a couple bucks. And teaching is really like teaching and projects are when you really start to understand the language. When you have to explain it to somebody who has no knowledge, you really start to you're like, oh, wow. Oh, I finally get it. So takelessons.com, Wisant, and People Per Hour all are areas that I'm on where I just put, like right now, like I said, I'm learning Flutter. I don't know how to build a full Flutter app, but guess what? I'm getting pretty good with Dart, which Dart is the language Flutter uses, and it's like super JavaScript-esque, but there's just enough difference that, if you're not really good with JavaScript, you probably can't switch over to Flutter easily. Now, I don't think I'm really good with JavaScript, but I know it well enough, and I know the foundational parts of it, that like Dart's pretty easy to pick up. So I put on there, I can help people. I can help you with your Dart projects or help you learn Dart. And I put, $30 an hour, and I've got 4 people a week that I sit with for an hour and I help them learn Dart. And the cool thing is I'm getting paid $30 and I'm learning Dart as I'm helping them learn Dart. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I'm going to describe that a little more in the path, which is the next one. I have a really good idea about how you can kind of get a mentor. Mentors are like really, I don't want to say they're necessary, but they're helpful and everybody wants one. And so if you don't have groups locally, and I'll go over this in the path on getting mentors, but if you don't have groups locally, I've come up with kind of a cool little way to mimic a mentor if you got a couple bucks. So that's going to be it for this video. I appreciate you guys stopping by. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, if you guys want to get a group together, I will do meetups with groups of 5 or more. Just reach out and we can just go over stuff. Even if it's a language I'm not comfortable with, we can still try and figure it out. You guys can see me struggle with a new language. So like, share, subscribe. Again, the next video is going to be about kind of the path for a self-taught person. You can really take a lot of stuff from my path and use it with any of the 3 avenues, how you want to get there. But yeah, appreciate you guys stopping by again. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.